This is a video about argument ad hominem. Argument ad hominem is a far broader fallacy than was known before 2019, and this video will explain why. But first, to give some concrete impression of what argument ad hominem is, here's an example of an individual argument ad hominem. And I'll leave you to read the premise 1, premise 2, the conclusion, and the claim that all together form the argument. So you can see that this argument is illogical, as its premises do not support its conclusion. But the question is, what is the composition of argument ad hominem? What is it made of? What exactly is it? In this video, the label argument ad hominem is used in its sense in logic. You can use the label argument ad hominem to refer to anything, including anything outside logic. You can call a dog argument ad hominem, but obviously that has no significance in logic. So in this video, the label argument ad hominem is used in the most logically significant way. The most logically significant use of the label argument ad hominem refers to that ad hominem fallacy which is most broadly applicable to human ideas. And this assertion will be explained and justified later in this video. On the web and in other sources of information, the label argument ad hominem is used to refer to something that isn't even remotely that ad hominem fallacy, which is most broadly applicable to human ideas. In this way, their use of the label argument ad hominem suffers from many errors and omissions, in that the maximum logical significance is the only logical criterion by which to judge the worth of what a label in logic refers to. So why watch this video about this topic in logic? Well, given my major assertion of widespread errors and omissions about argument ad hominem, you may want to know why I might know something about argument ad hominem, and I'll explain why. One topic within philosophy is logic. An argument ad hominem is a part of logic and is an inductive fallacy of irrelevance. My name is Sinclair Banks. I got a BA in philosophy and English in England at the University of York in 1985. And in my BA, I scored first-class honours in logic, i.e. full marks. Since 1990, I've been a trial lawyer in New England. Argument ad hominem is a quite common problem in jury trials in America, and I expect it's a quite common problem in jury trials in other countries, because arguing ad hominem is global. This fallacy, argument ad hominem, happens to have been in jury trials since ancient Greece. And it's a significant threat to fair jury trials because it can deceive jurors and so can cause unjust verdicts. More than 23 years ago, I realized I was muddled about what exactly argument ad hominem is. And this muddle was because I had absorbed a misconception of some modern scholars. So I tried to understand this important and complex area of logic, which took me about 20 years while running my law practice. I also wrote a book about argument ad hominem and how to counter it effectively in jury trials. In this video, I will explain argument ad hominem to some extent, but as you will learn, argument ad hominem cannot be explained fully in a video. It's simply too complex for that. Argument ad hominem is a fallacy in logic, and as such is obviously an abstraction not a physical object, and so it cannot be presented accurately in a visual image, but rather can only be described accurately in language. So why even make a video about argument ad hominem, given it's not a visual topic? My purpose in this video is to point you in the right direction so you can learn the composition of argument ad hominem, i.e. what argument ad hominem is made of. In much of this video, I'll read to you from the text on the screen, but obviously you can turn the sound off and read the text for yourself, or you can pause the video from time to time to read part of the text if that suits you. There is one diagram in this video at the end, by which time you'll know enough about argument ad hominem to understand the diagram. The diagram provides an overview of argument ad hominem, rather like a family tree. To understand argument ad hominem, one must first know the meaning of some terms, which are described next. An inductive argument is a claim of cogency between at least two different propositions. Now, a proposition is a statement that's true or false. So an inductive argument is a claim of cogency between at least two different propositions, at least one proposition being claimed as supporting, called a premise, or premises if there's more than one, and one proposition being claimed as supported, which is called a conclusion. By cogency in this video is meant an inductive argument that is logically supported by some inductive principle. In the video, I skip a detailed definition of what an inductive principle is, but in short, it's any assertion that claims to describe as actual or probable a non-coincidental recurring conditional pattern in contingent reality, and in which conditional pattern its consequent alleges the consequence proposition is true or alleges its proposition is probably true. The law of gravity is an inductive principle. If one drops an object on Earth, the consequence is the object almost certainly falls towards the center of the Earth, barring some intervening force. Another example of a cogent inductive argument is Socrates is a man, therefore probably Socrates is mortal, per some inductive principle. And probably all men are mortal is an inductive principle and is probably true and is relevant to the premise to support the conclusion, and so the argument is cogent. In other words, it's inductively, logically well reasoned. Every inductive principle has its own inductive form, and to explain fully the meaning of an inductive form is too technical for this video, but every inductive form of argument consists of a unique pattern, like all forms in geometry are unique. For instance, there's only one square form, though an infinity of individual shapes can take its form, each by being square, and an infinity of individual arguments can take the form of any given form of inductive argument, including if that form is a fallacy. In inductive form, the unique pattern of which that form consists is composed of more than just structure. Content of some specific particular sort or sorts is also a component in inductive form. But in contrast, in deductive form, the only component of the form is its structure, without regard to any specific content. I'll skip any further explanation of deductive form because argument ad hominem is an inductive form, not a deductive form. The term fallacy in this video refers to any inductive form of argument that is logically reasoned in all individual arguments that have its form. In other words, a fallacy is illogically reasoned in all arguments that take its form, not just illogically reasoned in some or most arguments that take its form. And this makes a fallacy logically more informative and thereby more significant than a form that is merely illogical in only some arguments that take its form. a fallacy automatically informs one that any argument that takes its form is illogically reasoned, whereas a form that is merely illogical in only some arguments that take its form does not provide one with any automatic information as to whether any given argument that takes its form is illogically reasoned. By an ad hominem fallacy in this video is meant an inductive argument in which one premise consists of an identified man's alleged idea, a second premise consists of some alleged attributes of his. In the conclusion, only the worth of his alleged idea is judged, and the premises provide no logical support for the conclusion. That is, the premises are irrelevant to the conclusion. This is why argument ad hominem is called a fallacy of irrelevance. And again, this video uses the label argument ad hominem to refer to the ad hominem fallacy that is most broadly applicable to human ideas, as that is the most logically significant use of the label argument ad hominem. As will be shown, the ad hominem fallacy that is most broadly applicable to human ideas is a far broader fallacy than was previously known. This discovery in logic I completed and published in a Law and Logic book in 2019, The Solution to an Injustice in Trials, subtitled The Fallacy Unmasked. The book is copyright. There is some description of the book and of argument ad hominem at www.sinclairbanks.com/author. The book can only be purchased from that website. You can read some of the book by going to Google, entering Google Books, and then entering the book's title in the search bar at Google Books. And the book is also in some libraries in the US and in the United Kingdom. If your local library wants a copy and it can't get one by an interlibrary loan and asks me for a copy, I may provide the library with a copy. Past uses of the label argument ad hominem, including by some logicians, refer to less, or I should say far less, of the broadest ad hominem fallacy than exists. Past uses refer only to a small fraction of this fallacy. And some people do not even refer to a fallacy in using the label argument ad hominem, making their use of the label of little, if any, logical significance. In the book, there are 4 descriptions of argument ad hominem, which are there because of the complexity of the full composition of argument ad hominem, and I'll address these 4 descriptions. First of all, there's what I call the full description. This is about 140 pages long, in parts is highly technical, and that's obviously too long and complex to present in a video. This is a description of the full composition of the ad hominem fallacy that is most broadly applicable to human ideas, with some highly technical qualifications regarding form, which are too complex to explain in a video. The ancient Greeks discovered 3 species of ad hominem fallacy. 3. My book shows there are 48 basic species of ad hominem fallacy, and these include the Greeks' 3 species. This recently discovered ad hominem fallacy has a vast breadth of applicability to human ideas, and so I also call it the mega fallacy. A second description of argument ad hominem I call the shortcut, which is a highly shortened version of the full description by omitting much technical description of what I call exclusions of cogency. All arguments ad hominem have 6 formative attributes in common. The shortcut includes the first 5 of these 6 attributes in full and includes part of the 6th. I call these 6 formative attributes commonalities, as all individual arguments ad hominem have these 6 attributes in common. And following is a quote from my book where I list these 6 commonalities in brief, without their footnotes and other amplifications. So I'm going to leave that to you to read, commonalities 1 through 6. A third description of argument ad hominem I call the functionally equivalent definition. And this fits on one page and is the functional equivalent of the full description of argument ad hominem. So I'll leave you to read the functionally equivalent definition of argument ad hominem. This functionally equivalent definition and the full description are both used in a law I drafted and proposed, which appears in the book, The Solution to an Injustice in Trials. The point of the proposed law is to prevent argument ad hominem in jury trials because it can deceive jurors and cause unjust verdicts. And the fourth description of argument ad hominem I call the colloquial meaning, which refers simply to an argument based on irrelevant personal criticism. And there's an argument ad hominem of that sort. However, there is far more to argument ad hominem than that colloquial description, and also far more than was known before 2019. So now I'll explain the most logically significant use of the label argument ad hominem, and why the most logically significant use refers to that ad hominem fallacy which is most broadly applicable to human ideas. The reason a fallacy is logically significant I've already explained. A fallacy is an informative form as to any individual argument that takes its form. One knows that any individual argument is illogical if it takes the form of the fallacy. The broadest ad hominem fallacy that exists is logically more significant than any narrower ad hominem fallacy that exists, because the broadest ad hominem fallacy, the mother and father of all ad hominem fallacies, so to speak, includes every narrower ad hominem fallacy. And so the broadest ad hominem fallacy comprises more of logic than any narrower ad hominem fallacy. The genus and species of argument ad hominem. My investigation revealed the broadest ad hominem fallacy that exists is a genus with 4 subgenera and 48 basic species. A genus is a group of things which all possess in common some attribute or attributes, but which things also differ in some way or ways. I'll explain later what constitutes a basic species of argument ad hominem. An example of a genus is the genus Rattus, with its various species of rats. There are 56 species of rats, according to the Encyclopaedia Britannica. Every individual rat belongs to a particular species among these 56 species. Likewise, every individual argument ad hominem belongs to a particular species among the various species of argument ad hominem. The 2 determinants of basic species of argument ad hominem are which subgenus an individual argument ad hominem belongs to: critical, laudatory, circumstantial, or critical and circumstantial. And all 4 of these are described in the book and at www.sinclairbanks.com/author. And the other determinant of basic species is which criterion of the worth of an idea is used to judge the worth of the idea in the conclusion of the individual argument ad hominem in question. And there are also complex species of argument ad hominem which are described in the book, but I skipped those in this video. The full description of argument ad hominem in the book lists 11 permitted criteria of the worth of an idea, and in complex species, more than one criterion is used, and even some unpermitted criteria can be used in some circumstances in complex species. 7 of these 11 permitted criteria can never generate cogency within the confines of the first 5 commonalities of argument ad hominem, and I call these 7 criteria fallacy supporting. But the other 4 of the 11 permitted criteria do sometimes generate cogency within the confines of the first 5 commonalities of argument ad hominem, and so this cogency must all be excluded so that these 4 criteria are thereby also fallacy supporting, because we're trying to describe as broad an ad hominem fallacies exists, and so there mustn't be any cogency. Otherwise, the fallacy wouldn't be a fallacy. So given there are 4 of these criteria that sometimes generate cogency, there are 4 sets of exclusions in the full definition of argument ad hominem, which together remove all of the cogency that using these 4 criteria could otherwise produce, apart from a sort of cogency I call non-thematic cogency, which is a sort of coincidental or contextual cogency which can arise. And I'm going to skip that in this video. The goal of discovering a perfectly illogical form of argument is strange, as typically people value logic over illogic. However, the goal of discovering a perfectly illogical form is the very nature of any hunt for the composition of a fallacy, because a fallacy is a perfectly illogical form of argument, not just a generally illogical form of argument. The above example of an argument ad hominem with John stinks as its second premise belongs to the species that consists of members of the critical subgenus, and critical is my terminology, referring to personal criticism of the targeted man, and 2, in which the worth of an idea used in the conclusion is judged by the criterion of certain truth, of the contingent kind, as opposed to necessary truth. Plato recognized this particular species of argument ad hominem, and Aristotle recognized 2 other species of ad hominem fallacy, which 2 species are also within the critical subgenus. Another philosopher, John Locke, recognized the laudatory subgenus based on authority, such as a man being an expert. But laudatory argument ad hominem can be based on some other lauded attribute than a man's authority, such as him being a sports star. Premise 1, Lionel Messi claims drinking Coke improves one's soccer. Premise 2, he is a great soccer player. Conclusion, therefore drinking Coke improves one's soccer. This illogical argument is a laudatory argument ad hominem. What makes argument hominem so much broader in ad hominem fallacy than was previously recognized is that there are more generators of species than were known to apply in the context of ad hominem fallacies. Both more subgenera, the critical and circumstantial subgenus was not previously recognized, and some extra criteria of the worth of an idea by which to judge the worth of the idea in the conclusion, such as probable truth or probable falsity, and predictive worth. These 2 criteria, which are very commonly used in argument ad hominem, were not previously recognized in the context of ad hominem fallacies. Some of the extra criteria, including the 2 stated immediately above, require the exclusions of cogency so as to be rendered fallacy supporting, not merely sometimes illogical, merely sometimes not cogent. And the content and number of these exclusions were not previously known. The practical significance of the discovery of the full composition. What is now known are the number and content of these exclusions, and that the number and content of these exclusions are humanly manageable. The discovery of these exclusions of cogency took about 20 years of investigation. The full ad hominem fallacy that has been revealed by this investigation is the genus of argument ad hominem, what all argument ad hominems have in common. This is a vastly broader ad hominem fallacy than was previously known. To be aware of this vast breadth is important. for achieving fairness in jury trials, for achieving rational democracy, and to achieve rational human discourse in general. This is partly because probable truth or probable falsity is a criterion that is used often in argument ad hominem and is used very often in life, including in judging every issue of fact in law trials. The good news is the composition of argument ad hominem is now known and is stated in the solution to an injustice in trials in about 140 pages, and the book includes a proposed law that expressly bans argument ad hominem in jury trials because of its power to deceive jurors and to cause unjust verdicts. Presented next is a diagram that provides an overview of argument ad hominem, which fallacy I also call the mega fallacy because of its breadth. This diagram is from the solution to an injustice in trials and is copyright. You can see on this diagram at the top the genus, which consists of the 6 commonalities, and then how that branches out into the 4 subgenera: critical, laudatory, circumstantial, and critical and circumstantial, and then how those branch out into the species of argument ad hominem. And if you count up the basic species, you'll see that there are 48 in total. Each individual argument ad hominem is a member of one or other of the above species of one genus, the mega fallacy, like each individual rat is a member of one or other of the 56 species of one genus, Ratus. If you have any questions or comments about this video or about argument ad hominem, please mail your question or comment to the Law Office of Sinclair Banks, 208 Rock Street, Fall River, Mass., Massachusetts, 02720, USA. I will reply, time permitting. But before contacting me, please read the description of argument ad hominem at www.sinclairbanks.com/author. At that website, there are some critiques of some modern scholars' opinions about what argument ad hominem is, and the website may answer your questions and will give you some more idea of argument ad hominem. If you want to know the detailed composition of argument ad hominem, with its 11 permitted criteria, and exactly how broadly applicable to human ideas this fallacy is, you'll have to read its full definition in the solution to an injustice in trials, as this definition is not published anywhere else, being about 140 pages long. Very few people, only logical purists, will want to read all of these 140 pages because of their technicality. But the rest of this 664-page law and logic book is easier reading and includes dozens of examples of argument ad hominem in jury trials, which are quoted in the book. Thanks for your time. Stay safe and all the best. Thanks.